what you gonna do, Yacht Dollar, on Crypto Bull God and his crypto maniacs and the entire cryptocurrency market run wild on you?
Welcome in. I am the Crypto Bull God, and this is the recorded on Sunday, airing on Sunday, June 20th, 2021 Crypto Bull God podcast. You can find me on Twitter, TradingView, and YouTube at Crypto Bull God. I really have to get these podcasts started on an actual podcast platform. I think one of the reasons that I get a lower engagement on the podcast, quote unquote, videos that I'm putting out on YouTube, I think some people, if I had to take an educated guess, although I should go to Twitter and maybe just ask the question, but I think some people think that there's video associated with these podcasts. The other thing is, if you don't have YouTube Premium, I have YouTube Premium. It's been a long time since I haven't had YouTube Premium. I think if you close out of the YouTube app on your phone, you can't actually listen to whatever it is that you're watching or listening to on YouTube, but you can with YouTube Premium. So I know I have some work to do to get this thing out on some other platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, so that people can listen to it on more traditional podcast platforms. But for everybody who's tuning in, I really appreciate it. Appreciate the engagement that I received today on some Twitter questions, which we'll get into towards the end of the podcast. But before we get started and get into any conversation whatsoever, please take a moment, hit the thumbs up button, like the video, subscribe, leave a comment. I love to engage. I'm backed up on comments. I need to get back to people, but I love to engage. This helps me out as a content creator. Like the video. It takes 2 seconds. Drop a comment, subscribe to the channel, share it with others. That's it's the best way we can share sound technical thought processes throughout the community. I'd really appreciate it. What I wanted to start off today was just talking about the obvious, which is Bitcoin. And actually what I wanted to hit on was kind of to give you an insight into a technical analyst's frame of mind, at least somebody who has experience and has been doing this for a little bit of time, a chartist. And if you're not familiar with charting, I want to kind of share something with you. So hopefully you can understand and appreciate more relative to what some of the good technical analysts out there are doing and why they share some of the things that they share. So let's get into it. So what I specifically wanted to speak to was how, and I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of somebody who is not a technical analyst, someone who really can't read a chart. I can understand, I totally can understand how sometimes it could be frustrating how a chartist might tweet something and you read it. And let's say, for instance, they tweet, like I tweeted out a little while ago, I tweeted out a falling wedge. Okay. So I tweet out this falling wedge and I describe kind of what I'm expecting. But then today, I chart out an ascending triangle, a bullish ascending triangle. Actually, the ascending triangle is something I spoke to a couple weeks ago that quite possibly might form in the chart because, as I indicated, Bitcoin likes to form triangular formations within its chart, whether it's a descending triangle, ascending triangle, or symmetrical triangle. And so you might be asking the question when you're reading this is, oh my God, like, Crypto Bull God, you just posted a chart about a falling wedge, and now you're posting a chart about an ascending triangle. Like, what the hell's going on? TA is worthless. This is why I'm frustrated and don't understand technical analysis. So let me try to clearly explain this. The first thing is there can be formations within formations. You could draw several valid formations within a chart based on the price data that you're handed. Okay. The second thing is, and this is the big thing, as price develops, right? And this intuitively, this should make sense. As price develops, we gather more information. And as we have more information, we can discern a couple things. We can discern with more price data and more recent price action a higher degree of confidence regarding future price direction. But the other thing it lends itself to, as we gather more price data, different formations begin to form in the chart, right? So whereas a couple weeks ago I said, watch out for this potential ascending triangle that we might form in the chart, I think at the time I had commented on that, there wasn't anything to suggest that we really had an ascending triangle in the chart. It was just something that I was kind of watching for. Now that price has developed, right, since we reached, which I still think is our capitulation moment on, looks like May 19th at 30,000, since that candle body close and the more price action that's developed, it certainly looks to me like we could be in the midst of an ascending triangle. And that's because of the emerging price data and the formation that it has lended itself to. But at the same time, the falling wedge pattern that I drew and posted about on Twitter was a very valid formation. There wasn't anything invalid about that. Based on the price data that I had, it certainly was a falling wedge, and we did break out of the falling wedge and have since back tested and actually fallen back. If you actually look at that formation, we've entered back into that falling wedge formation. Now, the nice thing that I really like to see on today's daily candle price action, although as I'm recording this podcast, we still have. Okay, so I'll tell you the time I'm recording this podcast. I'm recording this podcast at 6:40 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we still have a little bit over an hour of price action to go. But I will tell you, at the moment, it looks like Bitcoin has the potential to close a green, to close not only green on the daily, but to close a very bullish reversal hammer stick formation on the candle body close here. I'm stumbling over my words. I don't know why that is. You ever go up to a chalkboard like in elementary school or junior high? This is really dating me. I don't even know if they have chalkboards anymore. You know how you can do the math problem easily when you're at your seat and then you go up in front of the chalkboard and you kind of freeze up? For whatever reason, I'm stuttering over my words right now as I'm speaking into this podcast. So whatever. Is what it is, right? Is what it is, as is life. So whatever, we're forming a bullish daily hammer on the candlestick formation for Bitcoin at the moment, which I really like to see. It's not really surprising that we have a green daily candle on Bitcoin, given that so far we've had 5 red candle body closes in a row, so you would expect a green to show up at some point. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens moving forward. But what I don't want, and I've tried to really communicate this very clearly on Twitter, what I don't want everyone to lose sight of, because this channel, this YouTube channel, and the TA that I provide on Twitter, yes, I do tweet sometimes about shorter term swing plays, okay? And I do tweet and on TradingView provide information pertaining to logical entry and exit points. Okay, all those things are true. You have to understand that big picture, though, what I'm focused on and what I've clearly communicated many, many times is the bigger picture, which is the cycle that we're in. And yes, we're still in a bull cycle despite this death cross that we've just gotten. We're still in a bull cycle. We're just having a lot of bearish price action right now amidst a bull cycle. And again, one more time, I'll reiterate why this doesn't surprise me and why the death cross and why the percentage of a correction doesn't surprise me relative to other bull markets in Bitcoin, is because of how overextended we were. You know, one of the things I reiterated both in my podcast as well as in my prior TA video was the time frame in which it took Bitcoin to break its prior all-time high around 20,000 and shoot up to 65,000. It well exceeded my expectations and most people out there from what I saw. Okay, so we were well overextended. So the fact that we're getting a correction to this magnitude, and we've gotten a death cross in the short term here, is not concerning to me. So you might say, okay, are you just filled with hopium? Are you biased? You just have this bull market bias, and you're not seeing the death cross for what it is. Nah. What I'd like to point you to, and what I'll continue to point you to, are the 6 empirical data points which have not changed, that are leaving me feeling extremely convicted that while we have short-term downside, there is much higher upside in the months and months and months to come. Now, that video was 2 TA videos ago, and perhaps I'll once again share a link in the description so you can check that out. But one of the things you logically have to do, and I can appreciate this as a mathematician and actuary, is you can't rely on one sole indicator or price chart to validate or invalidate your line of thinking or your thesis regarding a bull market or bear market. Really what you have to do, you have to gather as many data points as possible, as many independent data points as possible, to lead to a probabilistic statement regarding the most likely scenario, right? And that's all I've done. That's literally all I've done. I do this every day at my job. I do this every day as an actuary. And I've done that in this case here. And so while I can't tell you what month exactly the bull market's going to top out at, there's nothing about the current price action in the top that Bitcoin had around 65,000 that tells me that was the top, and we're entering a 2 to 3 year bear market. There's no part of me that feels that way. Now, I did receive a very good question on Twitter today, and I'm really appreciative of the person that asked that. I don't have that in front of me. I wish I could quick pull it up, else I would give you a shout out. But it was a very good question. And so the question was, and you should always ask yourself this. The question is, so I have a longer term bullish thesis in the sense that, okay, so we are in the midst of some shorter term bearish price action, but I'm saying big picture. Okay, you can't see me, but my hands are making a big circle right now, right? Big picture, all right? We're in a massive bull cycle, all right? And prices have not topped. Things are going a lot higher. And so someone asked me a very good question. They said, what would invalidate this thesis? What would invalidate this bullish thesis that I have? And they were specifically asking me for, excuse me, they were specifically asking me for a specific Bitcoin price target. I do not have a specific Bitcoin price target at this time, but this is what I would tell you. What would invalidate, or what would at least begin to invalidate my thesis and make me think that perhaps we are entering a longer-term bear market cycle here, is if we went substantially lower than 30,000. If we saw candle body closes, and I'm not talking about some sort of wick that went down to 24,000 and closed up at 33,000. That's not what I'm talking about. There's certainly a scenario where I'm incorrect and 30,000 was not the capitulation point. I've been adamant that it was. I find something on Twitter that says otherwise. I've been adamant that 30,000 was the capitulation point. But there's kind of 2 different scenarios, right? So the 2 different scenarios are Bitcoin has not capitulated, and it'll have some sort of real strong, high volume volatility wick all the way down to the low to mid 20,000s, and we shoot back up in price and close the daily candlestick in the low to mid 30,000 range. Okay, that still leaves me feeling extremely convicted that the bullish thesis is intact. Where I would begin to really reevaluate my thesis would be a substantial candle body close below 30,000. If we started getting candle body closes, 25, 24, 23, then I'd really have to go back and take a hard look and ask a lot of serious questions regarding what we could expect in the medium to longer term. That would leave me feeling a lot more nervous about my longer term bullish thesis. But so far, the price is holding up in that 30,000 range, and I continue to believe that it will hold up in that $30,000 range. Another sign of capitulation, something I have to, by the way, something I need to do a much better job of. At some point, I'm going to do this. Maybe, well, actually, I don't want to go there yet. I'll just say when I have more time on my hands, and I'll let you kind of take from that what you may think I mean by that. But when I have more time on my hands, because I have a lot of things going on right now, my job actually, I have a lot of responsibilities. As a managing actuary, I'm responsible for an entire product line. And we have a lot of work in particular going on right now. So I have a lot of things to keep me busy. So it's pretty hard to keep up with some of this stuff. Making podcasts and TA videos. But one thing I have to do a lot better job of at some point is writing down notes. There are certain thoughts, these boom, boom, boom. During the week, I think of these different things to share on this podcast, and it escapes me if I don't write it down. So I have to do a much better job of that. But one thing I did write down, and kind of thinking about things I wanted to share with you guys today, and for the few ladies out there, is just another sign of capitulation I'm seeing in the market. And I don't know how much I've touched on this in the past. Quite frankly, I forget how much I spoke to this in my prior podcasts. But just the level of negative sentiment and impatience that I see in the market is just another reason why I feel very strongly that if we haven't bottomed, we're extremely close to bottoming. But it's crazy to see the negative sentiment shift. I mean, I routinely see people fighting amongst themselves on Twitter. Let's all remember the golden rule and treat others as we would like to be treated. And I'm not even joking in the slightest about that. Just because you're on social media doesn't mean that you shouldn't treat people with respect. Well, you know what? I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth. Unless if you're talking about ass clown maximalists I won't actually, I won't say any names. I've tweeted about certain people that I've called ass clowns because they're just so ignorant. So I guess I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but I've never gotten nasty with anyone on Twitter. And I think everybody should be very mindful that if you're remember the golden rule. And if you're getting that emotional, you really need to ask yourself, if you're bringing that much negativity, right, and you've lost money in the market and you got emotionally invested, the best thing that you can do is exercise logic and learn from it. The worst thing you can do is feed into your emotions and take it out on other people, because that's all people like that do. When you're getting that negative and you're arguing and being mean to people on Twitter, you're taking your frustrations out on people, and it's really sad to see that take place. But these are the things I've seen. And the other thing that I notice is it is extremely difficult to grow your following on Twitter or on YouTube at the same rate in a very bullish, euphoric state of the market versus the state we're in right now. Bitcoin's chopping, going sideways. Alts are correcting, down 50, 60% or more, 70%. And people aren't happy, and it's hard to, even if the content that I'm putting out now is as good as the content that I was putting out when things were euphoric, I don't get as much engagement. And that's not anything specific to me. That's just specific to the market sentiment. The other YouTube content creators that and Twitter followers that I respect, they say the same thing. So it's not anything unique to me, but these are signs that we've either capitulated or we're just in a state of depression right now. We're in a state of depression. And what you have to understand is, I'm going to constantly go back to this. Education's power. If you've gotten to a point where you're just so upset and so frustrated, you should ask yourself some important questions. Did I invest too much? Do I really know what I'm doing? Do I really know what I'm invested in? Fundamentally, do I know what I'm invested in? Do I know key levels to buy and sell at? Because here's the other thing you have to recognize. For those of you who are sticking around and didn't capitulate and wisely, in my opinion, held your investments, Something I just continue to hit on time and time and time again is if you are not logical about selling out, scaling out, not selling out 100% of your portfolio at a price target, because that's ignorant. How many times have I said that? But when we enter a true state of euphoria and it looks very likely that the market truly has topped and we're going to enter that 2 to 3 year bear market, okay, because that's going to happen again. Are you educated enough? Do you know logical price targets to scale out at? And what are those price targets, and what percentage of your portfolio are you going to be selling? These are the things you need to know. And if you don't know the answer to these questions, the people that are frustrated now that your investments went down the way they did, you're going to be even more frustrated if you don't know the answer to those questions, because there's a very, very big difference between looking on your ledger balance or looking on your Binance or Coinbase balance and seeing a unrealized gain and looking at, let's say, your portfolio value is $10,000. That looks nice to maybe for you based on your financial situation and what you invested. If you invested $1,000 or $500 and you're looking at $10,000, it looks nice to look at on your phone app. But guess what? You don't realize the gain until you sell. Your $10,000, if you don't know what you're doing, can turn quickly into $3,000. Okay, do you follow what I'm saying? Now multiply that. 100,000 could turn into 30,000. A million could turn into 300,000. 10 million could turn into 3 million. Although, 3 million is, 3 million is still a nice chunk of change, right? But still, 10 million turns into 3 million. So the point is you have to really take it upon yourself to do your due diligence and educate yourself. Else, how could you even be in this market? This is the most volatile place to be. And it provides, I've said this time and time again. There is a generational wealth transfer opportunity that we are in the midst of. But where there's a high reward probability, there's also a high risk probability. And so you have to be very diligent, logical, and unemotional in the way that you approach it. And I can't repeat this enough times. I'm going to repeat this many, many, many times until as we're approaching euphoric top. I've noticed based on some of the tweets, and this really comes from, let me just say this. Everyone wants certainty and specificity. Everybody wants that. Everybody wants to know when something is going to begin and end and at what price level, right? But no single person can provide you with that. If you're following anyone on YouTube or anyone on Twitter who is guaranteeing you certain price targets and or exactly when, I would encourage you to challenge their thought process, and it would probably be better for you to unfollow them, okay? No single person can provide you with anything outside of logical analysis leading to forecasted scenarios and outcomes with certain levels of probabilities. Let me repeat that one more time. There is no single person who can provide you with anything outside of logical analysis leading to forecasted scenarios and outcomes with certain levels of probabilities. I am an actuary. I encourage you once again, if you don't know what that is, to Google it. This is my livelihood and my life. Okay, I'm speaking from experience, many years of experience in the field as a mathematician. There is no 100% probability of anything in life outside of death. If you breathed your first breath of air, the only guarantee you have in life, as morbid as this is you're going to die someday. That's the only 100% probability there is. Okay? So what I'm aimed at helping you to do is to make informed decisions, right? I always say I'm a data point, right? So I want you to follow other people. I want you to, the most important thing is I want you to educate yourself. I want you to educate yourself. I want you to follow other people. You'll see me comment on other people's TA on Twitter. That should be kind of a hint that I value their TA. So I want you to follow some of those same people, and I hopefully you find my TA and information helpful as well. But just know that there is no certainty and specificity that everyone can provide you with 100% accuracy. We're all doing our best, at least the people who are really credible out there, and genuine and authentic. We're doing our best to provide you with sound technical analysis, whether you like to hear it about it or not, right? It has nothing, when I do TA, you have to understand the fundamentals and technicals are two very, very, very different things. When I give you technical analysis, it's black and white. Maybe one of the best examples I can give you real quick before we move on here, we're going to move on, but one of the best examples I can give you is, while I think, in my opinion, and again, I don't want to digress here, but I think it's silly when people divulge specific holdings that they have. I hold X amount of this, or it makes up X% of my portfolio. I don't owe it to anyone to disclose that information. That's private information. Not even my family knows that information. Okay, that's my own personal information, however I'm invested. So I don't know if with some of these people that tweet this stuff, I don't know if they're doing that, they're being disingenuous, which I can't stand, or they're just being ignorant. There's no reason to disclose that. But one of the things I have disclosed is that, I do hold a very large position in HBAR, right? Well, I also hold Matic, but Polygon. But, my position, I don't mind disclosing. My position in HBAR is greater than my position in Matic. Now, as much as I believe in the fundamentals of HBAR, and I think they have a plethora of opportunities in front of them, and it's a sound project to invest in, there's no question in my mind about that, and I like the technicals as well. Matic has, since April 23rd, for those of you who watched my last TA video, Matic has kicked the shit out of HBAR from a technical standpoint. Now, I have no problem saying that because that's just me being factual, right? So it has nothing to do with the fundamentals. It has nothing to do with how I personally view the fundamentals of Matic versus HBAR or how I personally feel about any investment. It's just a fact. Matic has kicked the shit out of HBAR since April 23rd. So, this is what I'm trying to provide you with. I'm just trying to provide you with, the facts, and logic and reasoning. And so hopefully you appreciate that as a viewer. Not a bad transition point, as I wanted to get into the chart of the week. So one of the things I commented on in my last podcast was that Bitcoin, because really all eyes are on Bitcoin right now. I mean, it is the chart I'm most focused on. And anyone who's experienced in this market, I'd find it hard to believe that they would say otherwise because, like it or not, it's the driver of value right now, and it's going to dictate the overall movements within the entire cryptocurrency space. I don't want to cop out this week and say it's Bitcoin again. So actually, I want to point to another chart that I've been relentless on. And I think if you're not paying attention to this, it's time to pay attention. I have pointed to the bullish divergence on the RSI, the rounding bottom, the fractal that is potentially playing out on, drum roll. Again, I don't have sound effects. HBAR Matic. If you own HBAR and you haven't been paying attention to the HBAR Matic chart, I will leave a link in the description to my prior TA video. It's time for you to start paying attention. There are a couple key levels of resistance on this price ratio of HBAR USD to Matic USD. One of the things I tweeted about was I don't feel in my TA video I hit on this hard enough, but there is a lot of resistance in between the point, we're just going to call it 0.5 to 0.6 region. There's a lot of resistance there. And there's also going to be a lot of resistance at the 1 level, 1.0 level. Once we pass that level, which I fully expect, which I fully expect, I do anticipate us at the minimum hitting that golden zone that I have charted out. So I'll leave a link in the description. I think if you're not paying attention to HBarmatic, a custom created chart that I've spoken a lot to and tweeted about a lot, I think you better start paying attention if you own HBar, because at least for me, it's the HBarmatic chart. I cannot stress this enough. The HBarmatic chart is the number one Hedera HBar chart that I am looking at. It's the chart that I'm paying more attention to than the HBar USD. It is the chart that I'm paying more attention to than the HBar BTC chart. So I would encourage you to take a look. Twitter questions. Man, I got a lot of engagement. So thank you, everybody, for... Oh, I just clicked off of this. Shoot. Let me get back to the questions here. So I appreciate everyone who took the time to engage with me in getting some questions here. So this is in no particular order. I'm just kind of scrolling down here, and I'll comment if it makes sense. So the first question here on Bitcoin Cash, which I haven't charted about in a while, which I do own some Bitcoin Cash. So Bitcoin Cash, I think, so this question is basically what this person's getting at is what do I think the top in Bitcoin Cash is going to be? I think at one point I had commented that Bitcoin Cash USD, again, this is not market cap, a USD top could be very similar to Ethereum. I'm going to kind of back off that stance. I mean, Ethereum's past peak at $4,400, we're just going to call it $4,400, vastly outpaced Bitcoin Cash topping at near $2,000. It was at like $1,700. So not to say that that's any linear indication of what the cycle top will be, but Ethereum's USD top has vastly outperformed, we'll just say by a factor of 2, what Bitcoin Cash has been. So in kind of quickly assessing this, although this isn't any hardcore TA that I've done, I would say in looking at some of the market cap projections that I shared in the Holy Crypto Trinity video, as well as the H Barbarians video, I would say it's very possible, if Bitcoin Cash stays within its relative ranking where it's at today, it could do around a 15x, I think, from current price levels. And if I do a quick calculation on that, that puts it at a little over 8,000. Of course, one of the things I touched on in a previous video was the rule of sevens. If something hits 7, it likes to get to 10, 70 cents a dollar, 7,000 to 10,000, even if it's a volatile price wick. So with that being said, I could see a volatile price wick hitting somewhere close to 10,000. I could see that very possible. I could certainly see Bitcoin Cash getting up close to 10,000. Maybe it falls a little short of 10,000, but right around 10,000, 7, 8, 9, 10,000, somewhere around there. Next question. China banning on Bitcoin mining. So there's really two questions here. So first off, China banning Bitcoin mining and U.S. states offering it. It's funny because I think the first YouTube channel that I ever followed, probably a lot of people can say the same thing if they're being honest. The first person, a quick shout out, there's probably a 0.001% chance he's listening or ever will listen, but especially since he doesn't appreciate TA, but the Modern Investor, if you're not following, give that guy a follow. I've been following him forever. He's like the voice of crypto that I've known since day one, the Modern Investor. And it's funny because he's talked about this before. Other channels, I think I've touched on this before, that this was only a matter of time. One of the things that Brad Garlinghouse often comments on is the centralization of Bitcoin due to much of the hash rate being comprised of a few miners within China. Now, I've heard this from several different sources, read this from several different sources. I don't know how to independently validate this, but given some of the consensus I've seen within the market about that, whether you believe Bitcoin is centralized or decentralized, that seems to be a fact. So I would say in general, I think it's a good thing if we can get some of that mining to get spread out and spread to U.S. states. I also don't think that it's surprising that any of this is going on. I mean, the more that this narrative continues, if you have the focus and vigilance and education to weed out the FUD by the popular news narratives and mass media, you recognize obviously we're in the very, very early stages here of, because we're just going off the narrative of a digital gold supplanting the archaic gold that has been invested in for years, right? So I am a believer. That the market cap for Bitcoin will eventually, at some point, Bitcoin will, its market cap will supplant gold. I think that without question. There's no hesitation in that thought process. And so I think the more we can spread out the mining within the United States and other countries is a good thing. So overall, I think that is a good thing. It says, the other question is when I think the consolidation or uncertain period. So when will the consolidation or uncertainty period will end? Here's what I would tell you. I can't give you a specific date, but what I would say is let's see how the month of June closes. I want to see that candle body on June, kind of zoom out, look on the monthly. I think June's monthly close will tell us with a higher likelihood of what we can expect moving forward. So I think for the rest of this month, let's just see how this month, let's take it one day at a time, right? Okay, that's what I would say to you to answer your question. Let's take it one day at a time. I don't know the answer directly to your question. Let's see how the month of June closes, and we can revisit that question. Okay, this is kind of getting at the same thing. Someone wants to know when I can assume a healthy market resuming within crypto. Again, let's see how things progress here throughout June. Let's be patient. That was something else I wanted to hit on real quick. I just remember this real quick before we get to some more Twitter questions. This actually just happened today. So someone asked me about making progress in the gym today. And I really appreciate, there's nothing that I appreciate more than when someone pays me a compliment related to hard work, because I've always said I don't consider myself the strongest, fastest, quickest, most intelligent person. I'm strong, fast, and smart, but I've done all these things because all of my life, all I know is hard work. All I know is to indulge my things in things I'm passionate about and exhibit hard work. For me, there's no excuses for anything. If I have not succeeded at something the first, second, or third time, it's because of me. There is no other person that's contributed to that. It's me. It's on me. It's on me to learn from those experiences, and I work hard. That's all I know. And so when someone pays me a compliment in that regard, in this case in the gym, there's nothing that makes me feel better. And this person, this made me feel so good, and there have been many other people who have told me this, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate this. This person went out of his way to share with me that I inspire him in the gym with how hard I work, and I love to hear that. And he asked me, his question was how long it took me to get to the state of where I was. And basically, I did share with him how long I've been working out and my philosophy, but I said the most important thing to keep in mind with the basis of his question was, that's not really the question he should be asking. The question is, based on his own goals, and what he's looking to accomplish, how can he get there? What should he be doing? And one thing he said to me was that I'm going to relate this to investing, by the way, if you wonder where I'm going here. He said to me basically that he heard he should be taking so many days off a week, but he wants to work out 6 days a week because he wants to get to where he's going faster. And I asked him to repeat himself. So he repeated himself. And I said, I really want you to listen to what you're saying. There are no shortcuts in life. There's no magical pill. You have to do something that is sustainable for the long term. And if you're just getting into exercising, you can't go at it full force. Think about the people who go on those crazy diets that never last. The reason those diets fail and the people fall off the diets is because they're unsustainable for the long term, right? You have to rationalize things and do things that are reasonable for the long term. So what I said to him, I said, be patient. Be patient. Put a program in place for yourself that works for you today. A day becomes a week, becomes a month, becomes a year, becomes a lifestyle. It's the same thing with investing. I get a little irritated sometimes when I feel the impatience within the market. If you're in this market and you're invested, you have to be patient. The times that we're going through right now will test your patience. The people who are less emotional and more logical and more patient, you are the people that will succeed, and you really will capture that generational wealth transfer opportunity. The people that are impatient, the people who are in it for a quick buck, a get-rich-quick scheme, and are essentially gambling, you are the people who will lose out, and you will lose big, I promise you that. So please take some time to really address that question with yourself and ask you where you're at, yourself at. This is a funny question. Okay, I just saw this now. I'm going to give that a like. Shout out to Whale Shark 310. Why are some eggs brown but some eggs are white? Dude, I don't know. Why are you asking me this question? I don't know, man. But I'm not racist. I like brown eggs and white eggs. I love all eggs. I don't care if you're a black egg, a tan egg, a purple egg, a gay egg, a straight egg. I love you all. So I love all the eggs. All right, that's my answer to that question. Some of these questions are newer. Let me get to the questions I sort of saw ahead of time and see if I can jump back to some of these. This podcast is going super long, and I also want to make sure my audience is staying engaged here, and I'm not losing you after 40 minutes here. Is the bull run finished? Dear Lord, I should have started with this question. My friend, is the bull run finished? Do you hear that? Those are the gains that we have yet to experience. No, the bull run is not finished. I keep hitting on this time and time again. I think I opened up the podcast clearly explaining that, so your question should be answered. No, the bull run is not finished, my friend, in my opinion. Yeah, this question, I'm going to answer your question for you, but then I also want to go on a little bit of a tangent here to explain why this kind of frustrates me. This person is asking me if 90,000 H-bar is enough to be a millionaire at the end of the year. Sir, I'm going to do some quick math with you. Let's do 1 million. You can do this on your own, by the way. 1 million divided by 90,000. Okay, that implies that H-bar hits $11.11 this year. Is $11.11 a reasonable price target? Well, if you watch the H-Barbarians video, you would know that is a possible target, but a less likely target, in my opinion. For this bull cycle, I'm not saying at some point it's not going to hit that price target. I would say it's possible, but less likely than some of the other targets I have. The reason that question annoys me, look, I'm not coming at you, sir. Sir, I'm not. I'm happy to have you. Happy to have you as a follower. Let me just explain to you why I'm irritated by the question. There is no person that I personally follow whose technical analysis or explanation of the fundamentals that I respect ever asks this question. The only time I ever see this sort of question or hear this sort of question really comes from an inexperienced retail investor that hasn't done their due diligence, that is hoping to become a multimillionaire. Sir, be less focused on this question and be more focused on having a diversified portfolio that is aimed at projects you believe in and where you're buying at logical price levels and spending your time understanding where you should be scaling out. This question, you shouldn't even be asking this question, in my opinion. But that is the answer. I answered your question. $11.11 It's certainly possible, but it's less likely than other price targets I've communicated. Time target for all-time high for Bitcoin. It hasn't changed. I've communicated that in prior podcasts, TA videos. I said the most likely, sorry, I'm getting a little tired. This podcast has been going a little longer than I thought. I still have to eat dinner. So I communicated that I'm still leaning towards between September to December. Sweet spot is the middle of October to the middle of November for Bitcoin peaking. Alts would peak a little after. I think the quote-unquote worst-case scenario is we bleed into the first half of next year. So we peak sometime within the first 6 months of 2022. That's the worst-case scenario, in my opinion. What do I think of the triple X's? I can only answer XRP and XLM. I'm not invested in the other project, XDC. XRP and XLM, nothing has changed. Go watch the Holy Crypto Trinity video. I clearly explain, and I've tweeted many times about what my view is on both. Nothing has changed. So please watch the Holy Crypto Trinity video. One last question came in here, very last minute, and I definitely want to respond to this one. The question is, how the fuck are you that ripped? Well, first off, sir, I would like to thank you for giving me that compliment, because as hard as it is for you to believe I don't look at myself that way, but the reason that I'm as in shape as I am, there's no trick to it. There's no secret. I'm not going to disclose my age, but what I will tell you is that since the age of 14, okay, I started weightlifting. Now, my weightlifting regimen when I was 14 years old looks a lot different than it does now. I started at the age of 14. I never stopped. There wasn't a week. There wasn't a month. There wasn't a time period in my life, no matter how busy I was. And believe me, when I was working hard towards securing my credentials as a full-blown fellow of the Society of Actuaries and essentially working 2 full-time jobs, because that's how much I studied on top of working full-time, I was unbelievably busy. I still worked out. It helped to provide a balance in my life. So I would say to you, consistently working out, persisting at it, being patient, having setbacks, having minor injuries. I've never had a serious injury, thankfully. Having the patience to work through those injuries. Persevering through a lot of obstacles and challenging times in my life, whether it be inside the gym or outside the gym, remaining positive, and just prioritizing it, always making time for it. There's really no other secret, just learning along the way, remaining humble, learning from people whose input I valued a lot. So there is no secret. I'm 100% natty. I've never touched an illegal substance in my life, because to me, that's cheating. And I could never cheat myself. I couldn't look myself in the mirror. So I've just worked hard all my life, sir, and anybody is capable of that as well. Like, I'm not special. Like, I'm no different than anybody else. Anybody else can do it. So, but I do appreciate the compliment, because implied in that statement is a compliment that I'm ripped. But again, I don't look at myself that way. I work my ass off, to answer your question. So, something real quick, just to end on a funny note. As you know, or as you may know, I haven't really talked about this in a while. I'm a single man. Okay. And I've been a single man for, I've been a single man for a little while now. It's been, we're going to be rolling into, let me see. We're going to be rolling into a year here pretty soon. Now, history would suggest, again, I'm very analytical. You have to understand, I'm an actuary mathematician, right? Very analytical, so you have to understand some of the ways that I word things is just how I am. But history would suggest that I'm not going to be single for very much longer. At some point, I'm going to unexpectedly find someone. But in the meantime, I like having fun and sharing funny stories with you. So I'm not going to tell you if this is a story from last night. I'm not going to tell you if this is a story from 6 months ago, because it could really be anywhere in between. But I wanted to share with you a funny story that I had about a date that I went on. Now, this date that I went on, nice girl, fairly attractive, fairly attractive. Similar age, the age difference was not very different in age. Similar age, fairly attractive. And this woman, we will call her, let's call her Nancy. Let's call her Nancy. I've never gone out with a Nancy before. Sounds like an old school term. I don't know any Nancys. I'm not friends with any Nancys. Sounds like it could be my Aunt Nancy. Aunt Nancy. I don't have an Aunt Nancy, but it sounds like it could be. Nancy went through some life changes. Okay? Nancy went through a pretty rough separation. Had some trials and tribulations along the way. And she was sharing these things with me. She was pretty open. I gotta tell you, I'm a really open person. I appreciate good communication. So I appreciate she was sharing these things with me. She's pretty open. But the moment in the date where I thought this might not work, and before I get to this punchline here, let me just say, I am the sort of person that I always want to give it a second chance. Okay? So even at the conclusion of the date, even though I wasn't really feeling it, I don't want to give up right away. It's just who I am. I at least want to go out a second time. And if it's the same way, because I'd like to think that, sometimes maybe you go out on the first date, maybe it's not electric the first time you go out, but if they're a good person and I'm attracted to them, I at least want to give it a second shot. Give it a second shot, all right? So it was not an electric date. Let's just put it like that. It wasn't electric. But I still wanted to give it a second chance. But anyway, let's cut to why I thought that this might not work. I have never gone out with someone before who spoke in the third person so much. Nancy really learned a lot about herself, and Nancy knew she was a different person. That once Nancy got out of this relationship, Nancy was a much happier person. Nancy's friends really like Nancy. And by the way, if you think I'm kidding, I shit you not. This is how this woman spoke 50% of the time. Half the time during the evening, I'm like, do you have a twin? Does she have your name? And is she sitting at our table? Because I don't know if you're talking about your invisible friend, someone I can't see, the person across at another table, or you're talking about yourself? Really? You're talking to the third person this much? But I went with it. I never laughed. I never, and I'm the sort of person that, I don't have a poker face. I do not have a poker face. You can read me. If I'm pissed off, you know it. If I'm laughing at you, you know it. So I have to be extra careful because I do not have a poker face. You can read my face exactly. You know how I feel. So I had to be very careful because this woman just would not stop talking to the third person. And I just thought to myself, look, I'm all for self-growth and I'm all for all this, but not only does this sound ridiculous, but she also sounded a little higher on herself. You ever meet somebody who, there's a difference. There's a total difference between being grounded and humble versus having an air about yourself, like you're better than the next person. There's a very clear distinction, and I was also picking up a little bit on the holier than thou feeling from her. I was like, all right, so she's... the way she described her past relationship, she sounds like she didn't really do anything wrong. It was all the person she was with. Sob story, feel sorry for her, and she's speaking in the third person the entire date. Yeah, this is not going to work. So, for those of you gentlemen, because I know most of my audience looking at the YouTube statistics, I know most of the people listening, not surprisingly, are male. If you are in a healthy relationship, And I do say healthy because those are far and fewer in between. If you are in a healthy relationship, whether you're married, engaged, or just dating, be very thankful and feel very blessed. Because I will tell you, as a single man, I've been on some shit show. I've been on some bad dates. And South Florida has not treated me kindly in that respect. So I think I'm going to get a dog, huddle up, and just have me and my dog. It's going to be me and my dog. That's what it's going to be. So anyway, on that note, I wanted to say I very, very much appreciate everybody's engagement. Twitter followers are picking up. We're getting closer and closer to Chartmania. I just want to get I want to get at 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. We can get Chartmania going on. So help me out with that. Share, comment, drop a comment, hit the like button, and subscribe to the channel if you're not. In closing, please join me in a moment of silence for all of those I attempted on multiple occasions to get into crypto and have remained ignorant. Thank you.